All right. Welcome everyone to what I hope is going to be a really exciting day. This is the 2025 International Project Management Day, and my name is Sylvie Edward, and I will be your master of ceremonies throughout. You're going to see me pop in and out to give you different tidbits of information. I'm very excited for our agenda for this year. And just to give you a little bit of an insight, some of you may not know where International Project Management Day comes from. Basically, it was started in 2004 by one of the PMI fellows, Frank Saladas, who at the time was working and the PMI New York chapter president. And since then, it's spread literally globally all over the world. We've been celebrating this in Canada as well. PMI says that the goal of International Project Management Day it is to recognize the many PMs out there and the project teams in every industry, including nonprofit organization and healthcare, who contribute with their time, energy, creativity, and innovation, and countless hours to deliver products, services, facilities, and provide emergency and disaster recovery services in every city and community around the world. This is a really inspiring group of people, and I am proud to be part of that group. This is officially the Canadian celebration. It's the 20th anniversary of the founding of International PM Day, and we're celebrating it annually in Canada since 2007. Although we skipped a couple of times, 3 times to be exact, over the years, like COVID, making this our actual 15th Canadian celebration. Our team this year is the power of soft skills, creating connection in project management with the high levels of uncertainty caused by economic turmoil, changing migration patterns, global conflict, rising food prices, unaffordable housing, and climate change. People are expressing their anxiety and fear in the workplace through short tempers and intolerance that are affecting team relations and workplace performance. Today, we're going to have 13 speakers from all over uh, talking to us about different ways to boost your soft skills to better meet the growing challenges. We will also be announcing a little bit later on the finalists of the winners for the Canadian Project Management Project of the Year and Canadian Project Manager of the Year award. And we have a packed schedule with a lot of interesting topics. We'll also have PDUs, so 5 PDUs for attending and 9 PDUs for watching the recording. The agenda, which is on IPMD2025, is composed of 2 tracks of presentations. We'll start with our keynote as keynote opening and we'll build up from there with different tracks. Following that, we'll have 2 parallel streams of presentations, A and B. And if you look at the agenda, you can see the description for each. And literally, you just need to click the join link to get to the right presentation. Each presentation will be kind of broken and separated by a 10-minute break where you can get a glass of water, stand up, stretch, switch between different tracks if you wish. If you want to stay with the same track for the next speaker, you just need to stay on that track. You don't need to do anything else. The opening keynote is on track A only. The agenda is shown with times in Eastern time zone so that you need to kind of adjust if you're not in that time zone. At 4 o'clock, we will wrap up with closing remarks and some prize draws. That's right. There's a lot of people that are going to be really happy as we have a whole bunch of prizes that will be announced at the closing at 4 p.m. So if you want to stick around to see if you're a winner, that'd be really great. Speaking of winners, we would like to thank our sponsors for all of their contribution in making sure that we have top speakers, wonderful prizes, and literally, like, we wouldn't have this without them. First, we have the support of several PM associations. PMAC, or the Project Management Association of Canada, is Canada's National Project Management Association, formed by the Canadian government in 2007, and Canada's official representative in the International Project Management Association that sets PM standards around the world. We will also have the support of two PMI chapters, PMI Durham Island, yay, that's my local chapter, and PMI Nova Scotia. Thank you for your support of this annual event. We hope to get chapters on board for next year. The more we can share. We would like to also thank the Mechanical Contractors Association of Canada and the Gold Seal program of the Canadian Construction Association for their support for this year's event. Ongoing support from the Ontario government has ensured this event has kept going for the past 15 years. And again, grateful for their support. Our longest running sponsor, ProSap Associates, has once again provided logistics support, speakers, prizes, and funding support. Process is a PMI authorized training partner and is Canada's oldest and largest project management training company with offices across Canada and around the world. ProSEP subsidiary Tidal Shift, a change management and leadership development training company, has also provided material support for today's event. We would also like to thank a new sponsor, Barnes & Conti, for help promoting this event within the U.S. Other new sponsors include LearnGistics, a company that provides support for organization delivering online learning, and Management, a company producing software to help condo boards and their managers meet their regulatory and fiduciary obligations. Please take a moment to visit our sponsors' website to find out more about what they have to offer. On the IPMD.ca website homepage, scroll down at the bottom and you'll see the logos. These logos are hyperlinked, so you just need to click on them and you'll be redirected to the appropriate website. And again, we want to thank our sponsors really for all of their support and their contribution to today's event. Our participants today come from all across Canada, the US, and some from overseas. So welcome. We have an important tradition in Canada of reading out a land acknowledgement at the start of our important gatherings. It is a tradition to honor the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people that have stewarded this land for millennia, and the diverse groups of people that call this land home today. We remind ourselves that we have come from different backgrounds with different cultural practices and beliefs, and that in coming together today, we need to stay respectful to each other's traditions and perspectives. All of us have a relationship with the earth and its plants and animals that house us, feed us, and nurture us, and create the conditions for the development of our societies and their rich traditions. These relationships are as different as the snowflakes we will see flying in our sky soon, like today, as the winter approaches. Today, I am talking to you from my home on the lands of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation in Whitby, Ontario, settled under the Williams Treaty, while others of you are attending from lands in other parts of Canada, the United States, and overseas. We are all residents of what our Indigenous people call Turtle Island, and we must protect the lands that we reside in so that our future generations will be able to enjoy their special relationships to the lands we call home. This extends to respecting any cultural beliefs and ceremonies that others may have to express their special relationship to the earth. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, who will be talking to us about the 3-pass process, building respectful engagement. Mr. Tim Lalonde, in his presentation, will discuss this topic with us. He has been working with companies to help them use leading edge tools and technologies to be more competitive and effective in their industries. Tim specializes in leveraging technology to develop business roadmaps that create and support change from within, with a focus on business process reengineering, project management, architecture and design, business case development, and problem solving. During the presentation, feel free to type in any questions that you may have in the chat window of the web interface. After the formal presentation, we will read out questions for the speaker to answer. This presentation is also being recorded and will be posted later on YouTube for those who chose to not attend today. Now let's get started. Welcome, Tim.
Welcome, Sylvie, and thank you very much for a wonderful introduction. Just a bit of a disclaimer before I get going. No artificial tools were used in the creation of this presentation, and all of the content you're about to see today is public domain information that you can find on the internet. What I'd like to do first and foremost is to welcome everybody. Today is a day about you and the craft of project management. It is a reminder of the critical role you play every day. Take the time to take the win, for you and your craft are very important to many other crafts and people. So today, again, is a celebration of project management, and take that win. You've earned it. Chaos, confusion, and mayhem. Welcome back to reality. Kidding, not kidding. We are only human, and today is about the people side of project management, which at times gets lost in the noise. Project managers are in the midst of the storm, trying to assist those navigating the boat. Your role is very important. The people side of project managers is becoming increasingly important and more stressful. Outside forces are coming in, projects are being canceled. The stress of stakeholders is taking over. Let me show you a simple to follow process that has helped leaders since before the Romans that will reduce stress for you, your teams, and your stakeholders. It's a natural way for us as mere humans to understand and how we communicate. We all know this. This is just a moment for all of us to remind ourselves we are just doing the best we can with what we have been dealt with. Let me add some perspective to things that are likely already in your kit bag. If not, you now have some more things in your kit bag. But what is the 3-pass process? Why? Why does it exist? Well, the most important thing is to improve communications. This is the one thing that everything we hear about today as being the most difficult. There are so many meetings. There are so many virtual meetings like today. There are so many things going on. One would argue that we're over-communicating. However, we're not actually having the impact of that communication. We feel it in the stress. We feel it in projects that are being delayed. We feel it in the number of elements that are being escalated when in the past they may not have been escalated this way. So it's about improving that in communication. However, it's also about solving problems, because a lot of the stress today is identifying, is it a problem? Are we talking about a problem? Does the problem need to be solved? Or are we just speaking to the anxiety? It's also a way to be innovative. today there's so much information coming at us when we're trying to change the status quo and try to do some things that are the brave new world. How are we not getting that messaging out? So again, going back to communications, but we are stifling innovation. We are becoming more checklist oriented, more compliant oriented, and yet we still have major problems to solve that requires creative ideas. The fourth bullet point is something that's very important and why the three-pass process is so important. It allows you to educate as you communicate. All too often, we're going to meetings, we're in stakeholder engagements, we're in presentations, we're on job sites. We're actually at a construction site, and we're finding we're talking at people and not to people. So we're not taking the time to pause and to educate others as to what we're trying to convey. Listening to understand falls into that category, but also how do we present information that is respectful to others? Understanding what your role is, the role of the individuals around you, and being respectful of those. And all of these, again, as I spoke earlier, are pretty much bread and butter project management. But the velocity and the veracity of what's happening to us today is blurring the lines. And sometimes, like today, we need to take a pause. Today is about celebrating you as project managers. So in that, let's go back to the basics. And what I'm about to present today is really just the basics, but in a structured way. So having said that, what is the three-pass process? We know why it exists, but what is it? It's just a methodology to collaborate with others in a structured way. What has been uncovered is that when there is a format to do something and you're following it through muscle memory, you'll find that there's a natural way of communicating. And it's a multi-layered approach of communicating and creating. So why are we here? Well, we're here today to celebrate you as project managers for the one day a year where we all recognize that project managers is a craft and that your ongoing support is important. What are we going to discuss? Or the whole day is dedicated to the people side and the soft skills required for project management. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to have two streams, a stream A and a stream B, that are going to provide you, the project manager, ability to listen to world leaders in areas of expertise in soft skills. So we're here to celebrate you. What are we going to talk about? People skills and soft skills. How are we going to do it? Through multiple presentations on two streams. So now that you have that, it's a way to guide the narrative to ensure that everyone is on the same page. And this last bullet point is something that is near and dear to me. Because the three-pass process takes the human into every part of the equation, it's a way to guide the narrative at a pace and cadence of respectful engagement. So some of the times it's difficult. It's not about you. It's about the project. It's about the task. It's about the working group. So it's about taking the time to acknowledge, who am I speaking to? How do they understand? And what is the pace and cadence that's respectful for everybody in the room, on the job site, in a face-to-face meeting, or at a customer site? Well, how does it actually work? So we know why it exists and what it covers, but how does it actually work? Well, to all of us, it's going to be quite simple. The first pass is just a strategic pass. And what that represents, it's a very high-level pass. It's why are we here? What's the vision? What's the conceptual diagram? Conceptually, what are we going to talk about? What's the big idea? Just listening. Sometimes the strategic pass is the passive act of just listening. So there's something coming forward, someone's in talking to you, just listen. So take that first pass. And lastly, it's the definition stage. So requirements gathering. It's that high-level first round. What's going on? The second pass is the tactical pass. Again, a word you're very comfortable with. And it's just to provide some context now. So now you're taking the time to say, well, this is kind of the why we're doing, and goes back to now, what is it? So it's to provide some context. So it's to take you one level lower. And again, it's respectfully taking you down. And words that come into play here are, what are we going to talk about? What are the goals? What's the logical view of what we're talking about? What's a straw dog, or what some people call a prototype? Let's discuss. So I've heard you. Now let's discuss. Let's break it down. And lastly, if you've defined your requirements in your strategic paths, let's assess those requirements. Let's flush them out a little bit further. And the final pass, which is the pass where everybody wants to start with. We're so busy today. People just want to tell me what I got to do. Tell me what I got to do. And this is the action layer. So everybody wants to start the conversation at what's the action we're going to do. And that's where some of the working group meetings and some of your stakeholder meetings can start to get derailed because you're starting at the end and you haven't provided the proper context. And sometimes people have forgotten why they're in this engagement in the first place. So words that wrap themselves around that are things like, how? How are we going to do it? What are the actual tasks to achieve this goal that meets the vision? What's the physical layer look like against its logical structure? And conceptually, are we still in alignment? What's the action plan? So I built a prototype. What's the action? I've listened to you. I've discussed it. Now let's commit to action. So this is this accountability piece. So all too often we've been in meetings and it's just about, we have another meeting. So what was the commitment level? What's our commitment level to do something about it? And lastly, it's the solve. We've defined it, we've assessed it, now we want to solve the problem. So this is, again, natural. We do it every day in our personal lives and our professional lives. But sometimes we don't take the time to actually see that there's a respectful way to do this. So what does the overview look like? So as you can see, it goes from left to right, using the chess pieces is the king and the queen are your strategic level. They're the big vision. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? What's the conceptual view? The next level is the tactical view. And again, it's about breaking it down one level. And then lastly, operational, which again, everybody wants to focus on. But remember, we're human. We're not AI models. We're not machine learners. And yet people will record meetings, they'll run them at double speed because they feel the consumption of information is in fact the ability to move forward, when in fact it could be the inverse. So the 3-pass process reminds all of us as project managers, it's the human-centric report. Ultimately, we may be using technology, we could be digging a hole in the ground, we could be building an apartment building or a condo complex. But really, ultimately, humans are going to be engaged somewhere. And those humans need to convey the information of the why, what, how of what we're doing. So it's about context. It's about, does everybody understand the context of what they're doing? Not just the content. We've all been in that room where we're dealing with very highly specialized individuals and they're speaking in very detailed schematics or very detailed information. But have we taken the time as project managers to read the room or to read the job site? Is everybody at the same level of knowledge and awareness of what those specialized individuals are speaking about? If not, you're the universal translator. You're the one that has to be able to break that down and say, what's the context of what that content is? And it's about understanding everybody's role. So when you're in a particular engagement, specifically ones that take long times, 12, 18 months, 2 years, and things start to get blurred, you as the project manager, have you taken the time to understand everybody's role? We all have the tools, the RACI chart, and all of those other types of things. But have we forgotten that they're there for a reason? That those tools that are in our kit bag are there? Understanding people's role. Are you a decision maker? Are you responsible for things? Are you one of the senior stakeholders? Or are you one of the operational people getting things done? And where does that fit? And it's a natural way of seeing the world around you. It's about you, your role, and what's the engagement all about. And it's, again, not counterintuitive. It's about going back to how you learned in university, how you learned in college, how you've learned a new craft at home, whether you're a hobbyist or you're a woodworker. How did you naturally do something? Well, you don't learn how to turn a bowl for the first time by buying a lathe and putting a bowl on. You have to figure out, why does it work? How does it work? And ultimately, what are you trying to build? Are you trying to build a bowl or a vase? And those types of things is how humans have been learning and communicating for a millennia. And lastly, and again, this is the one that's counterintuitive. It's actually a more efficient use of your time. I've been in meetings where I get called in. It's one of my specialties. I get called in often to come into projects that have gone sideways. and try to assess what's going on. And I come into most of those meetings and I realize it's meetings about meetings to have meetings for future meetings. And so ultimately everybody is showing up, but we're not making any progress. So by having a structured approach, your meetings are far more efficient, they become much more impactful, and you actually are able to glean out what's important. The one I like the most is actually an efficient use of your resources. Too many of our good people are in meetings where they don't need to be in those meetings, or an email would have achieved that. So by having a structured approach, individuals understand what their role is, how that information is focused, and how it's brought up the food chain. We have less meetings, we have more time, and more importantly, we get better engagement. And the one that I like the most is we get to focus on the scope and not the changes. So this is where, and I go back to working groups, not to poke holes at that, but where I find the biggest symptom comes to me that says, okay, this is where the structural breakdown has happened, is when we're in those working groups and we've recognized that there is a lot of energy in the room. There's a lot of people that have a lot of influence, and they're coming up with a lot of opportunities and actions and decisions that could be made. And you as the project manager need to understand, focus on the scope. Does it meet the scope of the original engagement and not just the change? Because when you get an old adage is you put 4 engineers in a room, you're going to come up with 6 options. That's not an untrue statement. But what that identifies is, did those individuals that were there, were they focused on the scope, or were they just focused on a change? And that change leads to another change, which leads to another change. So then I always ask the individuals in the room, is anybody in this room a decision maker? Can they actually decide the course of action that's going on? So if I've gone through the 3 pass process, I've gone to, why are we here? What's the engagement like? Have we done that? And I've said, okay, what's our goal for this meeting? And we stay focused on that. And then we get into how it's going to be done, and it starts to go sideways. It's an opportunity to go back to scope. Yes, put that in the parking lot. Again, terms we've heard and used 1,000 times, but they were there for a reason. So it allows you as the PM to remember, we're getting into the scope area. Are you actually focused on the change, or are you focused on the scope? And this is the one slide that I always use to remind PMs that you are the only person that sees it all. Take a moment to digest that. Just reflect now on the engagements that you've worked on. That's why there's an international day to celebrate you. Because as a craft, sometimes in the midst of the battle, and I'm ex-infantry, so I use a lot of those analogies, you lose that you're actually the person that can actually see the whole field. You're the only one that can. Because if you're in the strategic level of the stakeholder, you are rarely either in an understanding mode or bogged down with the operational details. If you're in the operation, sometimes you don't understand the true spirit of the engagement. If you're at the tactical level, sometimes your ability to come up with a bright new idea may move you away from an original goal. But you don't understand the real reason why your executives have gone some way, or why the operational teams are pulling you in a different direction. But as the PM, you have a front row seat at every intersection point. So the Venn diagram has been used for many, many decades, and it's a simple diagram, but it's very powerful. And as you can see, you as the PM intersect at all the critical levels. You're the only one that can do that. So you have to also be respectful in what's the language of who I'm speaking to. So you need to be respectful of the operational area if they're coming back to you with a real down and dirty, ugly piece that they're trying to solve. Whereas, the soil samples are coming back from a construction site, and they're not giving you what you need to have, and it's a real catastrophic problem they need to escalate. Well, when you report that back to your tactical level or to your strategic level, you need to be respectful of whom are you speaking to? How does it impact your goals? And again, it's very unique. And this whole day talking about the soft skills and how to do conflict and negotiation and have those difficult conversations that are in the other streams, those are all there to assist you to remember, what's the role that I'm playing right now? Whom am I speaking to? And how do they process information? And again, The biggest place you're going to see this is when you're getting bogged down in operational issues and you need to escalate to the strategic level. The quickest way to get out of the morass of a working group that's gone sideways is, if there are no decision makers in the room, take the decision to the decision makers quickly, soon, and provide those strategic people with the longest possible runway to make an informed decision. If you wait too long in the working group, 3, 4, 5 weeks trying to isolate this out because you don't want to bring the bad news to the strategic level, you've actually disintermediated the role of the strategic person, because you haven't allowed them the proper runway to make an informed decision and to make a business level decision that may impact the operation, but they will have more time to make an informed decision. When you go into a meeting, whether it's a virtual meeting, a face-to-face meeting, specifically a customer meeting or a stakeholder meeting, always start the meeting with, what's the spirit of the engagement? This is the one that I pride myself with the PMs that I've had the joy of mentoring, is when you start those meetings with, what's the spirit of the engagement? You would be surprised, especially as you get into the 3rd, 4th, 5th month of engagement and everybody's deep into the work, that they forget why we're doing this. And sometimes reminding them why you're doing something alleviates a lot of the pressure that's going on, because people now have a sense of understanding. Also remind them, what are the goals of the engagement? You're actually trying to achieve a goal, not to complete a task by 4 a.m. on a Friday afternoon. And again, those are correlated, but be careful, because sometimes if we keep our heads down, we lose sight of the road that we are actually traveling on. And the road that we're traveling on is to achieve those goals. What are the milestones and tasks? This is one that, as PMs, this is the one that I strongly encourage you. When you go into those meetings and you start with your project plan, whether that project plan is in Microsoft Project or some other tool that you have, including Excel, and you've got your entire project plan opened up, you've actually done a disservice to the entire engagement, because we as humans will need to process that as all of the information is presented to us. If I'm a details-oriented person, I'm going to go right down to the details. Without context, you may move the meeting in a direction you don't want to go to. So I always encourage my PMs. What's the spirit of the engagement? Then you've done that. Now present all your milestones, all your big goals. Show them on the screen and walk them through. Describe each one. There could be 5, there could be 6, there could be 15, but describe them. Then go down to the next level, which is the milestones and tasks by level. Because now you may have already answered questions for individuals. Because all too often, if they start with the first detailed line of a spreadsheet, you could waste 15, 20 minutes on that line, and there's a line item 4 or 5 levels deeper that requires 15 minutes of thoughtful consideration by the group, but you've run out of time. So you create another meeting, because the individuals in the room haven't found out where they sit in that role. So take the time and remember, this slide speaks to, you are the only one that sees the whole field. Use it to your advantage. Speak in the language of the people you're speaking to, and listen to understand from the people you're listening from. So we've gone through the why, we've gone through the what, and we've gone through the how. And if I was to end this slide right here, in this presentation right here, you would all think that this is just 3 levels. And yeah, I've heard this before. You haven't told me anything new. What's so shocking about this? And you would not be wrong. You'd be absolutely correct in everything that I just said. However, I want to present to you one more slide, and that is understanding the perception of where everything sits. And sometimes this gets lost. And this is, what's the perspectives? And this is the one that I really want you to take the time to digest this slide. It's incredibly simple. It is something, again, that for many of us who are opposed to hierarchical structures will be, counterintuitive, because yeah, we've broken free of this model. This is the old model. And to some degree, from an organizational structure perspective, you are not wrong. However, from an information flow perspective, even in matrix reporting, and some of the best work that the 3S process works in is in a matrix world, Because in a matrix world, this is where things become very fluid. And today, you could be bringing in an individual that in their normal role, they are a director. But in their current role for this engagement, they're at the operational level for whatever reason. So it's the respectfully understanding, where are you in the perspective? So let's review. So from the executive's perspective, obviously they provide strategy. They're providing the overall strategy, the organization, the engagement, whatever that is. The directors are the tactical representation. So they help their executives tactically that says, I will take your vision and I will break it down to its operational standards. And their managers now provide the operational work to feed the tactical level, to feed the strategic level. But it doesn't end there. Because to the director is now going to provide strategic vision for their managers. So their managers need to see, what's the strategy of my director? And then again, how will I tactically break that down into components that my supervisors will operationally fulfill for me? So the operational area will now feed those tactical things that will feed the strategy to my director, who in turn will feed the tactical to their executive strategic view. Then I go one level lower to the managers. What strategic vision do you have for your area? What will be your fingerprints? And again, your supervisors will achieve those tactical levels to the staff operational. Now, again, this is a traditional hierarchical view, but it's exactly the same for matrix, because information must flow from the bottom up. So at an engagement level, at the operational level of that engagement, the information must flow up. But are you flowing it up directly to the top? Or is there many layers to get that? Are there many layers between this engagement operational level and the actual stakeholders that made the original vision? And you see this a lot in construction sites that have multiple trades. So those types of matrix reporting things, you as the PM, again, going back to the previous slide where you see everything from all levels, in this particular point of contention or this particular part of the engagement or project, who's providing the strategy for it, who's providing the tactical goals for it, and operationally, how will they be achieved? You may not be at the highest level yet. You're only at the level of this bucket or this working group or this subgroup. Then how will that roll up to the next level? And how will that roll up to the next level? But the other key important part is, where's the decision flow? And this is the one that I see in so many projects that have gone sideways, is a lot of talk, a lot of action, but did the action get actually approved by the decision makers? Or was the action in response to an immediate problem and we didn't focus on, did the decision makers actually weigh in on that? The 3-pass process protects you from that, because you can say, great information, have I heard you correctly? So you now echo back to the people that have provided this information, and then you can go to that group and say, let me go and get you feedback on this, and we'll get a decision so that we can move forward. You've got 3 options available to us. We're going to go and get a decision made. And it will, again, on the surface saying, that's old school, that's going to slow us down. And I would argue that the evidence doesn't support that. The evidence supports that in a matrix environment where today I'm a director, but I'm in an operational role for this engagement, it's a gentle way to remind those individuals that, yes, in your normal day-to-day job, you have decision-making authority, but in this particular engagement, you do not. In this particular engagement, you're at the operational level, or you're at a tactical level, or you're here as a subject matter expert just to be consulted with. You don't have decision-making authority. The decision-maker authorities is, from an engagement perspective, at some other level. And this is where things get dicey. As you move up that and you move into the working groups and things start to move sideways, you could now have a decision maker in a particular working group, for example, that has been designated the decision maker, that in their normal day-to-day operations, they don't have any decision-making authority at all. But in this engagement, they do, for whatever reason, because the group above them have said that in order for us to be successful, that individual, whatever they decide, is where we're headed. And that's actually effective matrix reporting. But it only works if everybody understands that within this particular environment, am I at the operational level? the tactical level, or am I providing strategy? And if I'm providing strategy for this tactical group, am I actually providing tactical information for somebody else? And this is what allows matrix reporting to truly work effectively. But you as the PM need to understand and provide guidance and facilitation and mentoring is, does everybody in that particular group understand the roles they are within that group? Not their day-to-day work or in the other group that they're in, because they might be a decision maker in this group, but they're not in that group. And does everybody understand what, from that group's perspective, strategically, what do they have to do, tactically, what they have to do, and operationally, what do they have to do? So this 3-pass process is actually layered and tiered and works exceptionally well in a matrix world, even though it looks like it's hierarchical, when in fact it is not. It just says that information needs to flow this way, but never forget that decisions go in the opposite direction. Most projects I witness that go sideways are because people without decision-making ability have made influences to individuals to go forward on an action item, and that can be problematic. Good luck or good management, I'll always go with good luck, and sometimes those decisions and those actions will provide you good luck, but it is a dangerous path if the people in the area now believe that they have decision-making authority. And sometimes the decision is just a quick turnaround, a quick email to somebody who can make the decision. We've all agreed that we want to go this way. We need to spin up a VM. We need to spend an extra $500. We need to bring in a consultant. And the decision maker says, absolutely, go ahead. But it reminds everybody that was in that working group that it was not their decision to make. It was their recommendation to be made. Their responsibility was to make a recommendation, to bring it up to the tactical level, the tactical to the strategic level, and to the proper decision makers. So that's a long way to say that there is not just one, what I call STO, strategic, tactical, and operational. It's many layered, and it's structured, and it works exceptionally well in a matrix world. So that's a lot of talking, and it's a long day, and there's lots to cover today. But where and when would you use it? Well, personally, your family's going to love it, because I am the biggest victim of this, and my family always appreciates this. When you're trying to share a story with your children, and you just start at the end, and you don't give them any backstory, it can be very difficult. And my biggest one that I'm constantly being reminded by my family is I'll come walking into a room just talking, and everybody's looking at me like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about, because they're not in your brain. So take the time, look at the individual you're going to speak to, take a breath. Why do you want to talk to them? What do you want to discuss? Then get into the details. Could be where you're going for dinner. Where do you want to go for dinner? You know what? It's been a long day. I don't want to make supper. I don't want you to make supper. Where do you want to go for supper? What are our options, and how are you going to get there? Another one is when you're dealing with the service industry. You're at a restaurant and things are going sideways, right? All too often, people go right to the complaint. They go right to the service person, and they start right at the end. First of all, for many of those service people, it'll be the first time they've ever seen you, right? That may be their job. They could be the complaints department, so that they know you're there for a complaint. But you might want to provide some detail. Who are you? When did you buy the item? Why are you here? What do you want to do? What do you want to cover? More importantly, what are you hoping to be your outcome? And then get into the details. It goes a long way to build rapport. It reduces the tension of the person listening to you, and they now have the ability to listen and understand, because they're not trying to second guess you. They're not going to get defensive. They're going to be, oh, why is he here? What does this big guy want? And I'm physically a large man. And how can I help? How can I help them help me? When you're putting in a claim or complaint, like I said, or when you're just asking somebody to assist you, whether it's with your car or your home, electronic repair, something is on the side of the street, you're talking to a neighbor, just, why are you talking to them? What would you like to get covered? And how are you going to go about it? And you would be surprised how, even with your friends at a party gathering or whatever it is, whether you're, what's the next social event you're going to go to, everybody now is on the same page, especially if the group is 4 or 5 different people, and it's there. So becomes muscle memory, not just in your professional life as a PM, but just in your general one. And again, your family will appreciate it if you don't walk into a room talking. And professionally, the biggest one is actually project meetings. This is the one that, again, when I'm being brought in to assess projects that have gone sideways or trying to start projects that are very complex and there's a lot of different things going on. What's the spirit of the engagement, which is the why? What are we going to cover? And then how do you think you're going to get there? Staff meetings, whether it's with your staff or other staff meetings, again, be respectful, have an agenda. What are you going to cover? Telling your team that you're going to meet every, you need all hands on deck at noon, and you haven't told them why, just adds unnecessary stress. It could be, you want to have a big party because you've done a complete award and you're trying to pick the place to have a celebration. Put that in the agenda, right? That's the why we're going to be here having this meeting. And then what are you going to cover in it? And then the details is in the agenda. Social meetings is another one. You're trying to do a social event, you're trying to get the team together for a supper, whatever that is. And lastly, requirements gathering. I have been in very painful requirements gathering meetings, very, very painful ones, where everybody starts at the details. Or worse yet, I've been in one when I was with the Ministry of Justice that was literally an auditorium filled with people. And the PM started the meeting with a literal whiteboard and said, okay, what are your requirements? And to say that that was a train wreck would be an understatement, because you're asking an awful lot of people to provide information with no context. So again, in requirements gathering, why are you here? What are the requirements you're looking for? So not specifically for them to answer the requirement, but this is a new HR application, and we're here to talk about this level. Why is this thing going in? What are the major areas that we need requirements for? And then get into the details of the requirement. Because all of a sudden you can start getting into requirements on a screen design, and people are going, well, but what's the point of the screen? What's the goal? Steering committee ones, the most effective steering committee meetings you can have is the ones where they're focused on why, what, how, and the three lights: yellow, green, red. Time, budget, scope. What are my hits? What are my issues? Most of it can be done in one slide, but all too often they become status report updates and not steering committee engagements. What are the decisions that need to be made? Why are we here? What are we going to cover? And let's get into the details of why those decisions needs to be in there. Report backs, same idea. Be gentle with them, right? I know that there's so many executives out there that want the answer right on the first slide. Give me my executive summary and call it a day. And it's like, okay. However, you've done yourself a bit of a disservice if you haven't provided some background first, because all too often there'll be a phrase, a line, a sentence inside that executive summary that has caused the rest of the meeting now to be derailed because there's been no context. Do yourself a favor. Provide some context through a background slide first. Why are you in that room? What are you hoping to achieve? And then provide the executive summary. Working group meetings, I've probably mentioned that way too many times in this presentation. It's the number one place where things go sideways because you're focused on the details and not the goals or the decision-making process. Remind everybody why they're in the room and what's the purpose of the engagement. And the last one, which was my personal favorite, is when you're entering somebody's office. Whether you're in the office and someone's coming into your office, which with my teams I was very strict on, I would say, please come on in, sit down, take a pause. Why are you here? Why are you in my office? Right? And they, at first, they're like, well, and they get all shouldered up. And it's like, okay, no, just take a pause. Why are you here? What do you wish to discuss? Sometimes it's just, do you need to rant and vent? Have at her. If you're just here to say, you know what, I'm just here to vent and rage on, have at her. Because now you've told me you're not looking for solutions, you're not looking for answers, and I now have an expectation of why you're in my office. And then get into the details. Because then you've been respectful to the person listening to you, but more importantly, the person that's listening to you now can be respectful of how they expect you to respond. So when you go into your boss's office, or you go into a stakeholder's office, or you go into somebody else's office, take the time, right? Allow them to adjust to just you physically being in their office, whether that's a virtual office through a Teams meeting. Allow them with your video on, allow them to process. explain to them why you're having this video call, right? What do you wish to achieve? It can be quite simple. We need to talk to you about this. Here's what I need to cover, and then get into the details. It allows the individual you're speaking to time to process how and what they need to respond to. So those are, again, things that you already know. You know all of these things. By making it muscle memory, you will find that everybody's stress is going to go down. It's not about inflicting hierarchical rule that says, yes, you're the boss, I'm the managers, and you're the operational people. That's counterproductive, and that's only going to get you into a mess. But what it is respectfully saying, okay, for this particular conversation, for this particular engagement, are you an operational component, a tactical component, or strategic component? And then act accordingly. And again, I will repeat again and again, you are the only one that can see the whole field of play. Take it and use it to your advantage. And then lastly, with all of that, again, thank you for all the work you do for 365 days of the year. Many of it is thankless, many of it is behind the scenes. But just remember, it's the people side of project management that garners the greatest level of success. And you are that person. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim, for your very informative session. We're now going to take a short break. The next session in this track is titled Leveraging Self-Awareness to Deal with Difficult Situations. To attend this session, you can keep your browser open here and it will continue after the break. On the other track, we have What is Sustainable Project Management? These next sessions start at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Links to switch tracks can be found by going to the IPMD.ca website and clicking on a session to see its description and join button. Thank you.